Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk live stream on Sunday. Today, we're going to be talking about the lockout a little bit to get going. And then we're going to probably go into just whatever questions you guys have. Now, I know there's kind of a lot of rumors going on with the lockout. So, Chase, you want to just kind of start off with what you're feeling about the lockout? And I'll get into the John Heyman tweet here in a little bit. That's kind of the reason for the title of the episode. But what are you feeling right now about the MLB lockout?
Not very optimistic. I mean, yeah, both sides have made significant progress. We've seen it. They're meeting every day. The meetings are getting longer. They're starting to actually come to a middle ground between things. And then the Players Association has also come down from their asking terms. I know they're not asking about the arbitration anymore. They've given up on service time. They have lowered what they think the tax threshold should be. And you know what? I think they've come down a lot. However, I don't know where everything's going because they're still really far apart on the arbitration pool. They're still, I believe they figured out the service time manipulation, but I know they've given up on arbitration for, I believe, 2-year players. So there's still some things that need to be worked out. We have the universal DH, which is nice. The Padres are going to benefit from that a lot, but I don't think a deal gets done by tomorrow. I still think they're too far apart on both sides to have a deal done by tomorrow night. It's just not realistic to me.
Yeah, and I think that's the case too. And that's basically what John Heyman said. Let me pull up the tweet here real quick. He said tomorrow, huh? Not even like soon. He was
Tomorrow
saying
night.
tomorrow. Okay, yeah. So John Heyman said, contradictory to all the negativity upsets surrounding the MLB and players' talks. One person involved said he believes the sides are now, quote unquote, within striking distance, end quote, and a deal could be done by tomorrow night. Luxury tax remains a sticky issue, but a 225 to 230 million threshold should work. So, lot of Jameson telling about Starbucks for everyone. That's a positive note. Yeah, Devin, there you go, right there. The lockout takeaways. But I do think for me, like, I wasn't even necessarily thinking tomorrow night. But even though that idea has been floated around, I think more of like, it looks like it's going to be done sooner than later. And even like a week ago, it kind of felt like there was not like a lot of people felt like the season was not going to happen. Not a reduced games, a season not going to happen, which is a lot different than kind of what we've thought. Now, I want to say that we kind of expected going into like December that like 40 games would be lost. I feel like that was kind of our ballpark number. Chase, does that sound right? About 40 games lost?
Yeah, I was thinking we would probably get around maybe 100 to 110 games at most, just because we saw how it ended last time with when we only got 60 games. So I was like, I'll give or take like 100 games. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, we're gonna get 100 games. I don't know if we're gonna get that or we're gonna get more. I think we're gonna get a little bit more than we thought, but depends on where they come to tomorrow.
Yeah, so 100 to 120 games, I think that seems very likely. Now, if they had the deal done tomorrow, would any games even be lost? Like a couple, like 5? It would only be like a few days behind, right?
I think tomorrow is the last day before games start to get delayed, or not delayed, I straight out canceled. I don't think I think it's tomorrow. If there's not a deal by tomorrow, then spring training doesn't happen by March 5th, and then further games are lost, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so definitely tomorrow's obviously a huge date. But even if it's not done tomorrow, I do think like missing a handful of games isn't the worst thing in the world. Um, And if they're able to have over 140, over 130, like we're basically getting a full season. So hopefully that's the case. Um, I I don't know. I'm feeling a lot more optimistic than I was when we last talked about the lockout a couple weeks ago. And we didn't talk about it last week, and it was definitely super negative last week. So probably happy that we didn't. But I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit better than I initially was, which is nice because it did seem like oh, maybe they're in jeopardy of losing the full season, and it doesn't feel like that now. So definitely happy there. Anyone listening, we're gonna go through like any questions you guys have. Probably gonna go live for about 45 minutes today. Any lockout questions, anything you guys got, just start firing them at us. Also, it's still a bit difficult to find topics, and we are trying to get back on the posting every day where we do 6 videos a week and then a Sunday live stream. So any topic ideas that you guys have, let us know. Also, if you guys watched the mailbag episode last week, we are planning to have that once a week, at least for the off season, where we just kind of go over any questions you guys have. And probably after we post this video today, we'll post another question on YouTube to have like those mailbag questions brought up in an episode, either like Thursday or Friday this week. But there is a comment right here that I want to show. Quan Fam, as a San Diego fan, I'll take a World Series championship with a shorter, an asterisk World Series championship with a shorter season. I do wonder what's like the games for you that would make it feel like an asterisk season? Because if it's like 120 games, is that really an asterisk season? I would lean no. I think anything under 100 is like, I think 100 is probably the number that is like asterisk to not asterisk. Also, at the same time, like, I remember before the 60-game season started, I told people, like, look, if you win during the 60-game season, of course, people are going to say it's an asterisk season, but is it truly? I remember having like a bunch of discussions about it. And I think, Chase, when you, Isaac, and I started the show, like, I think we talked about that too, is like we didn't really know. Yeah, reason the Dodgers won on a short season. So yes, that will be my take from now on out. But I do kind of wonder, like, is there a game number for you that you think makes it like have an asterisk?
I think anything less than 100 games. Or I would actually say anything less than 81, because 81 would be less than half a season normally. So I would go over 81 games. That's not an asterisk because you guys played half a season basically, and you're making up what you can. If we get 81 games, that's amazing. Yeah, that's already better than the 2020 season, which was only 60. I feel like you get more ups and downs in an 81 game season, and there's more chances for a team to fall out and, crash and burn compared to the 60 game. Because all the Marlins make it to the playoffs in a 60 game season, and they were dead last in the, extended 162 game season. So I think 81 to 100 is you're fine. It gets a little like people are going to argue it, but for sure, anything above a can't be considered an asterisk.
Yeah, and Fam here says 82, anything under 80 to 100 games, and yeah, I'm with that too. 6, and then here I got another comment from Devin. 60 to 80, I consider as a short season. This could be beneficial for the Padres, but probably not for other regional teams. Yeah, I think I definitely think the short season benefits the Padres. Even though I say that, I don't want there to be a short season. Like I'd rather the Padres be successful in the whole 162 game season. I think probably the biggest thing this offseason that's helped the Padres is that the playoffs have now been extended, where there's 7 teams in the playoffs now. And one thing I was thinking about today, and we can go over whatever you guys want to ask, but I kind of wonder what you thought about this, Chase. So I was thinking about if the Padres are to get a wild card, right? And I don't know. Let's forget what wild card number they are. Say I don't think it really matters, but you have the 3 division winners that pick those teams, right? So, or I guess 2 division winners pick those teams. Do you think there would be like any chance the Padres would get taken from one of those division winners? Because I do not. Because I think if you have Mike Clevenger and Blake Snell as like your 1-2, and if they're clicking in the playoffs, I think for most teams, that's enough for them to pass on the Padres and try to play someone else. But that's what I was thinking. And I really do not think the seeding's ever going to matter in those. I think what the biggest thing for it is going to be who are the 1, 2, and 3 that are slated. And if the Padres have a healthy Clevenger, a healthy Blake Snell, and a healthy Joe Musgrove, I don't think that any division winner would try to pick them in the wild card round.
I'm going to have to agree with you there. Like I said, I think it's going to be all dependent on where the pitchers are at and are they healthy. Because every time the Padres are close to making playoffs, there is just pitching staff. gone, obliterated, not healthy, gone for the rest of the season. Horrible, just San Diego timing for teams. It's inevitable. I don't think they would, but I do think it also depends. It's not even necessarily if Snell and Claire and them are healthy. It's how does the pitching staff look? Because realistically, Darvish is probably going to be one of the top 3 guys. I don't think he's going to get moved down to 4 due to his pedigree and his contract. I think you kind of have to start him in the playoffs, and I think that's what the Padres are going to think. I wouldn't do it. I would go with Snell, Clevenger, and Musgrove. But you realistically can't keep Darvish out of that starting role. So,
One thing I gotta add, it doesn't really matter though who starts in the playoffs because like if Darvish comes out there and he doesn't look that good for 2 innings, like he'll just get pulled. I mean, I guess it does because you can give up a big lead, but like
yeah.
If you struggle, like you're gonna get pulled super fast. So I think that's something worth bringing up.
And now he will. I mean, with Tingler, who knows what would have happened. But yeah, you know what? We do have Bob Melvin. I kind of have to trust our team now, like to actually make smart decisions because it's not Jace Tingler behind the mastermind behind the pitching staff and bullpen. So you know what? I think we don't get picked. We actually have a real pitching coach. We have a real manager. You know, I think we're gonna be solid. I don't think anyone's gonna pick us. I think if anything, they're gonna pick like what is it, the 7th seed? Because the 7th seed is gonna be like one of those borderline teams that they probably shouldn't have made playoffs, but they're going to with the extended. So they're probably gonna get picked on just because they're probably the team that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I mean, and that team could even be like borderline 500, maybe even under 500 too. So like it might be a team that's not very good. And then also like it's kind of hard to judge right now. We don't even know who those teams would be. One thing that I want to bring up, a couple other comments here from Quan Fam. I'd rather be the team being picked than the team picking. 100%. I mean, if you get picked, we talked about this because I like the idea of like what they brought in for the playoffs because you pick your opponent. If you pick your opponent and you lose to that opponent, it is going to be a nightmare for your franchise for years. Like anytime you play that team for like the foreseeable future, as long as the rosters are kind of the same. So I think that's awesome. Another one here. Speaking of AJ, do you think he's been talking trades all this time during the lockout? 100%. I think that teams are still talking. I think they're still talking to players about deals. Maybe not directly to the players, but to the agents. And I still think that teams are talking. And it would probably be a little more casually, but I don't think that like trade talks or free agent talks have stopped at all because whenever the lockout ends, you're going to see like boom, deal, 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 deal. And it's going to be rapid fire with all the deals. So I definitely think that he has been, and we're going to find out right away. Like, because immediately when that time opens up, it's gonna be like, okay, these are the deals that the parties have been discussing. And I think that's what it'll kind of look like. And maybe it'll be like, oh, these are some of the deals we expect them to make, but it's going to be deals that have been discussed over the last couple months. So I definitely think he has been, and not just him. I think like every single team has been doing that as well. We see that with other sports too. Like the NBA has like a time where they're not allowed to talk to certain players. Then tell me how guys sign in 10 minutes into free agency. Like that doesn't make any sense. Everyone knows that there's deals going on like under the table sort of. So definitely happening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're probably not allowed to talk to their players, but that doesn't mean they can't reach out to their agents and their agents talk to their players. There's a lot of loopholes behind it. So, and plus, how else are we getting all these updates on? Oh, you know what? Madden has been linked to the Yankees and everything. They have been talking trades this entire time. They're just waiting for the lockout to end so they can pull off the moves and see who's there are the trades or who gets signed where and everything. So once free agency happens, that's probably one of the things that came out of the lockout that's well. The free agency period and kind of like the winter meetings, that's going to be rapid fire, like Matt was saying. It's probably going to be within 2 weeks. Everybody's off the market. All trades that are going to happen before season are going to happen. It's going to be done really quickly. The only thing is spring training. You got to have a spring training. You got players build up towards the season, get some real game reps in without there being an actual season. So Oh, and fun fact, apparently AJ Preller is pretty good at basketball. That was one of the things that came out of the San Diego Bleacher Report. So you know what? If you have a chance or you're in Peoria, apparently he plays basketball at the LA Fitness.
So you're gonna swing by?
I don't have an LA Fitness membership. If not, I probably would.
All right, what else we got? Rapid fire free agent signings as soon as the World Cup. This is definitely gonna happen. Let's see. I'll be a happy camper with Suzuki and Rosario. Chase, how do you feel if this is who the Padres ended up getting in free agency?
I'd be a very happy man. I like Eddie Rosario. Seiya Suzuki, we've been high on him. We've been saying that the Padres should get him just because, even if he doesn't live up to his true ceiling that he had in Japan, he's still going to be an above average player. And with Will Myers kind of being last year, depending on how he does, he might come back with a team friendly contract. If not, he's going to walk in free agency. Rosario, absolutely killed it in the playoffs this year, and he's just an all-around good guy to have around. So I think, you tune Rosario and Myers, and you put Myers at DH a little bit more. You have a really solid lineup. You'll get the most out of Myers because he's going to be healthy throughout the entire season. Rosario is going to provide a little bit of defensive upgrade in the field, and Seiya Suzuki probably is going to be a Gold Glove candidate with the speed. So I like it. That's probably one of the best outcomes for the Padres.
So does that mean that you get to move your guy Will Myers to first baseman?
Depending on where Eric Hosmer is and what they decide to do with him. I mean, I like it. I like Will at first, but if he hasn't been taking any reps, any fielding reps throughout this entire offseason at first, it's kind of hard. Like, yeah, you know what? You've been preparing for the outfield the entire time, and normally when you play first, you put on some weight last time, but we're going to throw you there anyway. I don't want to see that happen. We've seen what throwing around Will Myers throughout an entire season does. Like, hey, you're going to play center. You're going to play right. You're going to play first. So now you're playing third. Might as well throw you behind the plate, too, because it used to catch. No, let's not throw Will Myers around every single place in the diamond. It doesn't work like that. So if you keep him in a platoon with the right field with Rosario or left field with Rosario, whichever one they end up playing together and platooning them, and they switch between DHing, I think that's the best case scenario. Unfortunately, you still have Eric Hosmer at first base, but your lineup gets a little bit better.
Okay, so here's my situation. Padres trade Eric Hosmer. They get some of his money off the books, not all of it. They move Luis Campusano. Maybe they move some more stuff, right? They go after, they get, like Fam says here, Suzuki and Rosario. Suzuki and Rosario are now the corner outfielders for the Padres. Padres have Will Myers as kind of a depth piece. What they do with Will Myers is they split him between first base, left field, and DH. I don't think that's the worst thing because I think that he could bulk up a little bit, but he's not. The thing is, like you mentioned, he's not going to have time to go through a full off season of like, all right, let's prep for first base. Let's do this. He's not going to have that luxury. I don't love bouncing Will Myers around that much, but I think if it was strictly two positions, left field and first base, all you're playing is left field and first base and you're DHing sometime. If you did that, and then you could play Cronenworth at first, right? You could play Jerks and Profar in a pinch at first base. He's actually pretty solid there last year, I felt like. And then you go and you get a Nelson Cruz or a different DH, right? Or maybe you trade for someone. I think all of a sudden, like, that's a much, much better Padres team. And that's almost, maybe not exactly a wash, but it's not too expensive. Like, you're only probably going to raise like $25 million max on what you're paying guys. So I think if that's kind of the route that's taken, I think that might not necessarily put Will Myers in the best position to succeed, but I do think that could put the Padres in a really good spot where, hey, Will, like, we're going to kind of put you in a tough spot here once again for like the 10th time in a row for when you've been on the Padres. But I do think that would be a really good way to kind of like, not like a cheap route, because you would be adding like, I mean, if you sign Suzuki, Rosario, and Nelson Cruz, that's roughly like $40 million, $35 million. but then you lose Hosmer, and let's say you save $10 million this year, right? That's what I'm guessing. It would be like around, you'd end up cutting like half of his deal off. 35 million. Yeah, no, $25 million. So like you gain $25 million to your payroll. And I don't think that's out of the price range based on what we've heard. And based on what it seems like Peter Seidler is willing to kind of put into this team. So I think that would make the Padres a much, much better baseball team. That would improve them defensively. That would improve them defensively a lot, but that also would improve their depth a tremendous amount as well. And it would improve their lineup so much. And even if Suzuki struggles in right field, or even if he struggles offensively, he's still a great right fielder. You have him and Trent Grisham right next to each other. And then the big bat that you bring in is Nelson Cruz, of course, which would be huge for this team. And then first base might not be the best situation there. I'm kind of bouncing guys around, but I do think that's a cheaper route to make this team a lot better. Do you like that?
So I have an idea based off your idea. So instead of getting Nelson Cruz, so imagine they don't spend money on a DH. They tie up their money in Seiya Suzuki, making sure they sign him and Eddie Rosario. Worst case scenario, they end up spending, let's say, $15 million a year on both of them for a few years. How about instead Myers DHs for around the first half of season and starts taking reps at first base while Cronenworth and Ha-Seong Kim are platooning. So Ha-Seong Kim takes second, Cronenworth takes first until Will Myers feels comfortable, and then you start platooning the three. So Ha-Seong Kim, if he's not doing too well with the bat, you can move him to the bench, move Profar to DH, which Profar actually was a decent DH. He got on a lot. He was a great ninth hitter. So then you move Cronenworth back to second if Ha-Seong Kim does not, come around with the bat. You get him everyday reps for about 30, maybe 35 games. See how it goes. Will Myers gets acclimated to playing first. Cronenworth moves back to second if Ha-Seong Kim is not playing well. Cronenworth and Myers are going to platoon between first, depending on how healthy Will is. You have the outfield completely taken care of. You have Profar and Myers as backup outfielders. Ha-Seong Kim and Profar can switch at DH. Sure, you're not going to get the power aspect, but Profar is really good at walking. He's really good at going deep into the count, which the Padres do need, because when the Padres were hitting their best, they were taking pitches. They were getting pitchers out of the game early, and that's kind of where they fell off last year. So instead of spending money on Cruz, how about we save that money for next year when Will Myers walks and goes after another guy in free agency there?
So you're going like real low-cost options then. The only
just kind of everything in-house except Suzuki and Rosario.
Yeah. And they're going to have to add outfielders no matter what. Like, they don't have one of their outfielders. So that's definitely a spot where they're going to need to add someone. Another thing, when you bring up like having Kim at second, the part that we didn't really bring up, that you could have Abrams and Kim platoon at second base as well. I think that's a lot more likely than people are kind of expecting, just because if Abrams looks good in spring and they have roster spots open and they want to like take a cheaper route at one of these other spots, you could bring Abrams up and you can have them platoon as well. The only thing that I kind of wonder there is, like, are you giving Kim enough at bats to actually develop? And we've talked about this a lot, but I would probably lean no. So I don't know. I think it's tough. I think it's just looking at it. The only issue I have with like your scenario, and I don't think it's a bad one, I think that it makes the Padres better, but I don't know what their power numbers are going to look like in that case. Now, I also see a comment from Devin up here. He said, will you guys go into more depth with the new hitting coach, Michael Bradar, and how will that help like Haas changes his swing and launch angle? So we look at Michael Bradar, how like the Giants looked, and we saw their home run numbers jump drastically. Power, like slugging, OPS, all that stuff jumped up so much when he took over. So we bring up all this stuff, but we also not bringing up kind of the structural changes around the Padres. Devin, I definitely want to talk about that. So this week we'll do a full segment on that and just like how the Padres hitting is going to change. And we'll talk about Hosmer, but I think there's other guys that can benefit a lot from having their launch angle adjusted and just their approach adjusted as well. So we will definitely get into that a ton. But I think that would be my only concern. Like, do you get those power numbers? Because that was where the Padres lacked the most last year. They had bad power numbers. their strikeout numbers were actually among like one of the better teams in the league. You know, a lot of people will be like, "Oh, they struck out a ton." That's because everyone around the league is striking out so much more often. But where they lacked is in the power department. So I just don't know if there's enough power there. Also, a lot of the reason I want Nelson Cruz to be a Padres because I just would love him in the locker room. I think it's like the perfect locker room guy as well. And that's just kind of like not even like production output, but more just like that's what I like to watch. I'd like to watch Nelson Cruz at bat. So there's kind of that aspect of it too. Devin also left another comment here. Josh Bell and Kyle Schwarber would be great to add. Low cost efficiency is the key. I love the idea of bringing in Kyle Schwarber. Me and Isaac talked about it last week. Chase, what are your thoughts on bringing Kyle Schwarber for the Padres?
As a DH or as an outfielder?
So what we said is we technically had him as an outfielder, but our thought was he would be your DH and he could come in and like play outfield at times. But you would obviously rather not have him play in the outfield. But like it's a lot different than having him come in the outfield than Nelson Cruz. Because Nelson Cruz is like you don't want him in the outfield at all.
Yeah, so it kind of been the same thing with like Jorge Soler. We want him as a DH, but he can play outfield if needed. Okay. I actually do like that. We really do need a power lefty bat. Eric Hosmer is not that guy. It might change in this upcoming, but I still only see him hitting over a little over 20 home runs, if that. I mean, even with the idea of launch angle and everything, Eric Hosmer is just not that guy. He hasn't been that guy for the Padres. I don't think he's going to hit 25 home runs this year. I think he's going to get a lot better in gap-to-gap hitting, and he's going to hit over 20 home runs, and, you know, he's not going to ground out to the second baseman every time now, hopefully. So we do really need another good lefty bat that has power, and he fits that perfectly. Having another lefty is always good because Trent Grisham, yeah, he has power, but we've also seen it. He goes through waves where he's really, really, really hot. He's one of the best hitters. He's hitting 3 home runs a game. To this guy is going 0 for 4, striking out 2 times, and weak ground balls to first and second base the other. It's kind of no in between. We haven't seen a happy medium yet. So Kyle Schwarber probably does add a lot of value. It depends on how much he's going to cost because Kyle Schwarber is a really good bat. He can play outfield. He can play DH. A lot of NL teams are going to be looking at that and be like, we want that on our team. So I think his value just increased a lot more. So I think he's a great ad. I just don't know how expensive he's going to be.
So according to Spot Track, he's projected to get a 3-year deal worth about $40 million. So in comparison, just so you know, Eddie Rosario is expected to get like a 1-year, $10 million deal. So like $3 million AAV more, but also a couple years longer because I think Rosario is expected like I guess more like 1 or 2 year deal. Another thing to bring up about Kyle Schwarber, and this is something that I don't think you know this, Chase, but Isaac, when we were recording, he said he didn't care if he got put on bad Padres takes for this one, but he said he guarantees that the Castellanos will not have as good offensive numbers as Kyle Schwarber in 2022, which I agree with because if you look at their numbers career-wise, it's not even that close.
I think it depends on where Castellanos goes. If he stays with the Reds, then he might, and if he goes to Coors, he might. It depends on which ballpark he ends up in, because the Reds ballpark is not that great. It's not that huge. You go to Coors, you get the Denver air, the mile high, everything. I just don't know where I could land. I mean, I definitely don't want him on the Padres. We've seen power hitters come to the Padres and kind of struggle. The only guy that I've seen like really, it doesn't matter where Franmil Reyes, just because he was huge, and when you see the ball come off the bat, it's like a laser going out. Guy was freakishly strong and had a lot of power, and he did that across every ballpark. So like Aaron Judge, Franmil Reyes, the big guys, Stanton, those guys, it doesn't matter where they go to. I think Nick Castellanos, it definitely matters where he goes to. So yeah, Schwarber's definitely got a lot more power than Castellanos. So I think Isaac's right there.
It's funny. I feel like if you just look at like last year, like Castellanos put up such great numbers, but if Castellanos was to come to San Diego, I think that we'll expect his power numbers to drastically drop. And if you take his home runs in Cincinnati and move them to San Diego, a lot of them are not going out of the park. A lot of them are warning track flyouts. It's unfortunate, but it's true because the park is extremely small. And also San Diego, San Diego at the beginning of the season, it feels like nobody can hit a home run. I think that's always one thing that every year, the year starts and it's like, dude, why is everyone hitting it to the track and only to the track? And in about June, July, the home runs really start to pick up. At least that's what I've noticed just watching Padres baseball for so long. Is early on, it's brutal how many flyouts there are. Now, when they did move in the walls a couple years ago, that definitely helped a lot. It's crazy to think about how far back the right field wall used to be in San Diego and how anyone was hitting it out. It was pretty much impossible to go opposite field if you're a right-handed hitter to right field a couple years ago in San Diego. But the power numbers, that's why I think for Schwarber, for instance, the walls brought in a lot. I don't think the park's that bad for him to lose his power numbers. I still think he'd be able to do it really well. And he does strike out a lot, but he also walks an extremely high rate. So you could even bring in Schwarber to be a potential leadoff guy. And that's what he did in Washington last year for quite some time. Couple other things to bring up. Top candidates for Padres closers 2022. We will be posting another segment on this. So Dane, don't worry about that. We will definitely have a video just on who are the best candidates and who we are expecting to be that closer. Another one here from Irie. And I know, Irie, you commented this a couple days ago. If the Padres can't develop their infield because it's so stacked. I'm sorry, I pulled up the wrong one. That's why I think we should trade Kim because C.J. Jones is coming up. He's a valuable trade piece with a good defense. What do you think about trading Kim potentially? And I don't know, where you at with trading Kim? And Irie, just so you know, he when we did our mailbag, he brought up trading Kim for an outfielder.
Yeah. So I think it's smart. It depends. One, is Abrams going to be completely MLB ready? Two, I think the smart move would be to keep Abrams off the field at the beginning of the season. If you want to bring Abrams up to the game and start him at DH. So you only have to worry about the offensive part of the game first. You get the speed aspect. You can probably get a good leadoff hitter out of him. And you'll adjust to the offensive part of the game first. We know he's good defensively. We know he can play second. We know he can play short. We know he can play whatever. Just focus on getting the bat ready for MLB ready first. I think that would be my thing. I would start Ha-Seong Kim at second and put Abrams at DH just so that he can get the reps. I know we started Tatis off hot and strong. He was the starting shortstop. That's because no one was that shortstop. I think the year before that we had Alexi Ramirez. No, who was it?
Freddie Galvis.
I forgot about Freddie Galvis. Yeah, we had Freddie Galvis. Fernando coming straight to the is better than Freddie Galvis's average numbers. So I think if you do bring him up and you do start him at DH for probably the first 30 games of the season. Depending on how many games we have, that might be half the season at this point. But yeah, you start him at DH. You slowly start him at second base and see how he does. And if he starts to struggle defensively, you keep him at DH and you keep Ha-Seong Kim in the infield, depending on how it plays out. If not, it's Jake Cronenworth. But you start him at DH. You don't worry about him then. And the moment he shows that he's okay with the bat and he's okay defensively, you either, okay, Ha-Seong Kim, we need to talk. Then depending on how many outfielders you've done, you can either be an outfielder or we can trade you and you can get some real starting time somewhere else. And it depends on what he wants to do from there.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder what the market is for Kim too, because Kim makes a lot of money. But still believe there's a lot of upside there. We didn't see it offensively last year, but that's expected when you have such a major transition from the KBO to the MLB. And that's a drastic jump. Most of the guys that he was going against were pitching high 80s opposed to high 90s, mid 90s. That's the average. So when you jump to an 8 to 10 velocity difference on a fastball, there's gonna be a major adjustment that has to be made there. But I mean, we saw how great Kim was defensively. So that alone, him defensively alone provides a ton of value. He could be your 8-hitter if he starts early on. So I actually like that idea of bringing Abrams up and having him kind of adjust as a DH. Once again, the only thing I kind of wonder is your offense going to struggle? Because say that it does take him some time to adjust and Kim is still adjusting, I think you kind of still have the same problem that you had when you had, and it won't be to the same extent, but when you look across the league or across the NL and you go, what are other teams' DHs getting? Like, what are they getting out of their DH position? If you're getting significantly less at second, at DH, and then maybe even another outfield spot, like the Padres lineup, I think will still be very weak. So that would be my one kind of question there. But for CJ's development alone, I do like that idea a lot. I'm a big fan of it. I was looking. There was another one that I saw. Oh, if Abrams is ready, I put Abrams on the opening roster as a 4th outfielder and infield depth. We've talked about Abrams a ton as an outfielder. We really like it. I don't know about next year, though. And Chase, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that with the shortened offseason, it's a lot to ask him to come and really pick up a new position, especially being as young as he is and trying to pick up, getting up to that major league caliber pitching, like getting up to speed against that. Do you think it's a little bit too like far-fetched to ask him to be able to do that this year?
I don't know, because here's the thing. He got approved for base activities. He's completely done, and I believe he's in Arizona right now. So if this entire time he's only been working as an infielder, then yes, it's too much to ask for him in a shortened offseason to play outfield. We saw kind of what happened with Tatis, like, hey, you know what? You're going to play right field now. It doesn't work like that. No matter how talented the guy is, it takes an off to adjust from playing in playing outfield. However, if he's there right now, and since we don't get a lot of news about the Padres updates because of the lockout, he could be practicing outfield. And if he is practicing outfield as of right now, I think you can keep him as a 4th outfielder. And it depends on where you start him. If you start him in left field or right field, I think it makes a difference because right field has that funny kick in the wall where if it hits it or you don't know how to play it off the wall in right field, it kind of gets a little messy. Left field is not the same way except for where the foul pole is. So I think you can. It depends on what he's doing right now in Arizona. Is he working as an infielder or is he working as an outfielder?
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that if he's been working as an outfielder, then of course, like, yeah, he could pick it up. And he definitely does have like the skill set to project as a corner outfielder. I mean, even a center fielder, honestly, but I wouldn't expect him to move to center field anytime soon. And let's see what else we got. Oh, we got a Oliver. Hey guys, really hope we get to see baseball back. I hope so too. Are you laughing at this one?
Yes, I am absolutely laughing at that one.
Not ready is better than my cousin Tommy Pham's 4th outfielder. Also, Devin, is there a chance Cronenberg pitches again if the bullpen is taxed? I hope so. Hopefully, he strikes out Mookie again. That was a pretty legendary moment right there. What do you think Cronenworth is most likely to play?
More. I'm surprised they didn't use him
huh?
more. Yeah, they only used him one time. I feel like with the way that the bullpen was, I think we advocated for it too last year. Like, dude, the bullpen is taxed. You guys have Jake Cronenworth, who was like reliever of the year at University of Michigan. Let the guy throw some innings. It's not gonna hurt. It's not gonna hurt us throwing Craig Stammen out there for like the 30th time within a month. Let Cronenberg get some innings. I mean, get someone else some new innings. I mean, your guys are like saying, "Oh, the fatigue's not getting to me." That is such a lie. Tim Hill, fatigued at the end of the season, started going bad. Craven was fatigued. Emilio Pagan was fatigued. Like, I could name off so many guys who show fatigued and showed imminent decline from being used so much. So yeah, I think Cronenberg can definitely get used in more games, like especially if it's a blowout or we're getting blown out. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But in those cases, yeah, get the guys some reps.
It's pretty fun to watch too.
Yeah.
Like when we had Musgrove come in. Did Musgrove? He went into left field, right?
Yeah,
the same game.
It might have been.
It was early in the year. It definitely could have been the same game. I wonder. Another one, Czar, trade for Olsen. What do you think the offer would be for Olsen that would get accepted? Because I don't really know. Like, I don't know what it would be. It's tough. Because they're gonna want a lot for him, and you'd have to move Hosmer. But I don't know if you'd even move Hosmer in that
the
deal.
A's are not eating Hosmer's contract. So the Campy's gone because we have to get rid of Hosmer. So Campy's gone, Eric Hosmer's gone, and let's say Eggy is gone just because the other team wanted Eggy because they wanted to eat. That's the only way they would eat the entirety of Eric Hosmer's contract. So you probably have to give up Hassel, you probably have to give up Lange, and you probably have to give up probably a guy like maybe a Merrill Kelly, maybe a Urable and Hellis, and maybe Reese Kinnear. I think it takes still 4 prospects and 1 top 10 guy. Or top 5 guy.
Gee, so that's a lot. That's a lot to give up for him.
It's 2 high-end players and 1 MLB ready pitcher and 1 lower caliber guy, I'd say mid-tier guy. So that's what gets it done.
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, like, also, like, one of the main prospects is going to be moved with Hosmer. So, like, to get Olsen is not all of that because you would remove 1 prospect, but that would still be a decent pitching prospect, pretty much MLB ready. And then you'd also be giving up a Robert Hassel type, a top end guy, and then like probably like I'd say like a second tier kind of prospect where it's like borderline top 100, but probably not quite in top 100, not like a top 50 guy. That's a lot. I mean, that's significant capital, but I mean, it makes sense. And you look back on some of the most recent deals where the Dodgers trade for Max Scherzer and Trey Turner, and they give up 2 top 50 guys at the time. Like,
they give up their top 2 prospects. They give up Josiah Gray and then the second guy too. They give up their 1 and 2.
But they're top 50 MLB, right? At the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean I think, but it'd be less, right? You want to? I don't know because they were both on 1-year deals too, and Olsen has 2-3 years left of control. So I don't know. We'd have to trade an MLB level player for Olsen because nobody wants Hosmer. Exactly,
and that would be Reese Kinnear.
Well, but also like the Hosmer wouldn't end up going to Oakland. It would be a different team, so it would be like. Either I think it would be 2 separate deals. I don't think there would be a 3-team deal. I think you'd have to do it like separately. Where Hosmer would get traded, and then they'd immediately trade for Olsen right after, and like both deals would be on the table. But yeah, got a couple questions here. One from Jorge: what happened to Keonikala? He's on contract, right?
Yes, he just had Tommy John though, so I don't know when he's coming back this year. If he does come back, it will probably be, I would say, when did he get it? Because I remember he was sitting on the IL for a while.
I was at the game. It was his first series against the Giants. I was at the game when it happened, and then like he was struggling, and then okay, never mind. He got released. Gil just let us know.
Oh,
dang, he looked pretty good. I thought early on. I'm pretty excited about Kela. So Kela's not there. I mean, the Padres have plenty of relievers right now. They have a couple like extra relievers. So I don't know. I think they have more talent this year in the bullpen than they did last year. Do you think that's the case too?
Yeah, because I think that leads perfectly into this question. They're all in the same situation, so throw them as relievers. I think Motorhone is a perfect reliever. The guy throws 100, has a wicked slider, and I think his knuckle change up, whatever he calls it. The thing is nasty. It gets guys to miss. And what I've noticed, just kind of following his career, because I've been a huge Adrian Motorhone fan, is around 60 to 70 innings is when he gets hurt, and it's usually a shoulder injury. Unfortunately, this time it was Tommy John, and especially a good way to limit him is to throw him in the bullpen for a couple innings. We saw Craig Stammen, as much as he was used, he only threw, I think, 70 innings, around there, maybe 80 at most. No? How much was it? Was it 80?
Give me a second. I accidentally opened the wrong thing. It was a lot though.
So
I remember being at Petco being like, okay, never mind. He threw 88. I thought it was over 100, dude. I thought he threw that many.
no, I knew it wasn't that much. If he throws like 65 innings after coming through Tommy John and use him as a reliever, you could turn him into Josh Hader within the next couple of years. And he's so young that, yeah, sure, you gave up. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. Who's the right? Andres Munoz. He could be the next Andres Munoz. He could be the next Josh Hader. And if he's shown that he's healthy enough to go multiple innings after multiple days, maybe after a few years, after he bulks up, after his body finishes growing, after he's get adjusted to how to take care of himself, maybe you then go back to, yeah, he can be a starter. Kind of what the Dodgers did with Julio Urias. He started off as a reliever, maybe making a spot start every now and again, but it wasn't until he turned 24, 25, he started to be a full-fledged starter. That's what you need to do with Morejon.
Yeah, I agree, and I think like that Hader type role is a pretty good spot for him. You can put him this year after Clevenger. You could always have like Clev go, and then you could have maybe two other relievers. I would probably not say, I don't know, maybe Weathers. I mean, those three guys are all like pretty suited for 1 to 2 inning stints consistently as the year goes on, I think. And I think that's the best way to use them as well. And now we see like Hader is often used 2 innings, maybe sometimes 1, but I do like, yeah, I think it's perfect. Do not start Josh Hader. Another thing I want to bring up is, Devin, you said that we should re-sign Kela. I've seen a lot of people talking about like the relievers that the Padres should go after. So I quickly want to go over all the relievers that are currently on the Padres roster. And I'm just going to count them. Austin Adams, Nabil Crismatt, Tim Hill, Pierce Johnson, Dinelson Lamet, Adrian Martinez. This is not updated. Emilio Pagan. Yeah, Luis Garcia. Who's the other guy they got?
I'm forgetting. There's another guy.
Yeah. Also, though, we have Craig Stammen, Ryan Weathers, Drew Pomeranz. That's 11. Like, there's a lot of guys, and this isn't counting Adrian Martinez. Huh?
You could add Kevin Kopps to that list.
Yeah, there's like a legit like 13 guys right now. I don't think Drew Pomeranz is going to be ready to start the year. But they have like a lot. Yeah, Robert Suarez. So that's 13 right there. And then there's like also multiple guys. Yeah, Pierce Johnson. There's like multiple guys ready too. So like there's like you could have 15 guys that could pitch in any moment. And obviously they're not going to.
I don't know if you mentioned him.
Luis Castillo. Yeah, I mentioned him.
Oh, you did?
Oh, Jose Castillo. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mention Jose Castillo. He's been gone for a couple years. Yeah, Javi Guerra's there too. Steven Wilson's one. There's like over 15 guys. Like there's a lot of guys. And this is something too where like having reduced spring training is gonna hurt because these guys are competing. These guys are definitely competing. Austin Adams, I see a lot of people saying like he's underrated. Yeah, he broke the hit batters record. But his stuff is pretty nasty. But the thing is, if he still has such a terrible lack of control in spring training, one of these other guys is likely to beat him out. But if he doesn't, then, maybe he gets put into a high leverage role in the bullpen. I think the Padres bullpen is so interesting because they might not have like those top end guys, but they have like 15 guys that can come in. And I think what we're going to see is a lot of it. Do you remember how last year with Nabil Crismatt, they would bounce Nabil Crismatt in and out of the minors into the pros over and over and over? They're going to do that a lot this year where they can have guys come in and pitch an inning or two and then send them down to AAA and then move another guy up. And not every player can do that, obviously, because it kind of depends like where they are in their career. But I think that's very likely to happen for a lot of these guys. And there's going to be like 3-4 guys consistently in AAA or AA that are ready to get the call at any moment. And they might just get called up for a week, pitch 2 appearances, and then go back down. But we're going to see a lot of different guys pitch out of the bullpen this year for the Padres. So it's going to be pretty interesting. And I really want like some of the young guys like Kevin Kopps, like Ryan Weathers. Ryan Weathers might not make the team. Like, and I don't even think that's the worst thing for him. We talked about him on the episode yesterday, but it's just there's so many potential guys that people are going to lose these jobs. People are going to win these jobs. So I think that's probably at least for the MLB level for spring training, that's probably the thing I think I'm going to be locked into most. Just what is this? How is this reliever like room shaping out? Who's like definitely going to make it? Who's not going to make it? Because there's like 10 guys in the bubble right now that could make it or could not make it, which is pretty crazy. I feel like that's a very unique thing, don't you think, Chase?
Yeah, the amount of relievers oh, dude, and we forgot about Ray Kerr, the lefty that throws like 100 an hour. Great, dude. There's so many guys that not having an expanded spring training right now is gonna hurt a lot of guys' chances to make the MLB roster. I mean, Kevin Kopps could make it, Ray Kerr could make it, Steven Wilson can make it. On top of all the other guys that are already there, and you don't have Drew Pomeranz, you probably don't have Jose Castillo right away. Depending on where Adrian Martinez, you might not have him at the beginning of the season. Depending on where Lamed is at, you might not have him at the beginning of the season. So it gives these guys chances to come up and prove that they're worthy to be on an MLB roster. However, I think the only problem is, and I know the Players Association was talking about it, is they wanted to limit the amount of times a guy can be sent up and down between the major leagues and minor leagues. So depending on where that is in this TBA agreements, I don't know if they stopped talking about it. I don't know where that was at, but that could play a major factor in who stays on the roster and who doesn't. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. There's going to be multiple guys moved. And we've talked about like, there's a lot of teams too that try to get like reclamation projects. And that's what we think is going to end up happening, or at least I think is going to end up happening with, Pagan. I think that Pagan is definitely like suited to get moved just because someone's like, oh, look, he looked great in Tampa. He had Larry Rothschild as pitching coach. We're going to go with what he did in Tampa. He's not very expensive. That's what made sense for the Padres to bring him back. But yeah, I definitely think that there's going to be a lot of movement within the Padres bullpen. And also, like you brought up, like with the limit to how many times a guy can be brought up or brought down, that could also be something where they're looking at it going, all right, well, maybe we have to trade some of these guys that are younger and are about to be called up. Maybe you get burned by trading one of those guys. Maybe you don't, but it is interesting, like kind of trading like prospect capital for bullpen guys. But I think like Pagan definitely could be moved. I think a bunch of the guys at the MLB level are getting moved. I think we will go to our final question for today. I'm going to go to Greg for this one. We haven't talked about Suzuki a bunch, but who are the front runners for Suzuki? The teams that have been mentioned the most that I've seen are the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Giants, and the Padres. Those are the four. I definitely think that Suzuki is likely to be, not likely. I think there's a good chance that he becomes the Padre. I don't think it's likely that he becomes a Padre because I think it's definitely like up in the air of where he's cited to. But he did have a workout a while back where like I think it was his brother or like one of his good friends. They were playing catch or they were like doing some like pitching stuff, and he was wearing a Padres hat. And so that got a bunch of like people on Twitter like freaking out like, oh, Suzuki's coming to the Padres. I do think the Padres are one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the race to get him. But I think the Red Sox also make a ton of sense there. So if I had to pick a top 2 most likely teams to land him, I would say Red Sox and I would say Padres. That one.
I think those are my main two too, the Red Sox and the Padres. I remember there was an article by, I think it was Yahoo Japan, that said that Boston Red Sox were the front runner, and then another article came out like 2 weeks later saying the Padres are. And I remember Koji Urahara, who was the Red Sox closer in the time that they went to the World Series. He mentioned, hey, when are you going to sign to the Red Sox, or who's your team? And Suzuki was like, yeah, I can't talk about that right now. But Koji Urahara was like, yeah, you should definitely go to the Red Sox. Like, he was really like, hey, you should come here. They'll be nice here. So I think those are the top 2 teams. I really hope he signs with the Padres, but if not, I think it's going to be the Red Sox. Yeah. Unfortunate, but I feel like it might just be the Red Sox.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like that they've been rumored the whole time too. So I feel like those are probably the two most likely. Yeah, the Red Sox are heavily linked to Suzuki. Yeah, what Devin says is basically exactly how I feel. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for today's episode. I know we have a few questions here, but kind of run out of time on this one. But thank you all for listening. We're gonna come out. We're trying to get a topic, like a video posted every day, whether that be a Sunday live stream or just a regular segment. We're trying to get back into the 7 days a week kind of routine. I know there's not a ton of stuff baseball wise, but your guys already gave us two segments for these next couple days. So perfect there.
I think I got another one, depending on this question that was asked.
Yeah.
We can do a whole segment on Adrian Martinez and what we think the Padres will do with him.
Okay. Yeah. So that's probably our next three then. Talking about Michael Bradar, him, and what was the other one? Oh, the closers. So yeah, a lot of stuff pitching wise because there's so many guys that are options right now for the Padres. But I think that's gonna do. Yeah. Okay. Final thing. Why would anyone want to live in Boston? That's a great point. I don't know. I visited Boston for the first time this last summer. It was pretty nice, but San Diego is much nicer. So there's that too. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely think that if I was in Suzuki's shoes, I would way rather become a Padre than a Red Sox. I don't think it's close if I'm Suzuki, right? Like if you're Suzuki, you got to go to San Diego.
That's what Ohtani did. He was like, yeah, I'd much rather play on the West Coast than on the East Coast, man. It's much nicer over there.
Yeah, I'm with that. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for tuning in. Had a really, really fun time talking. And we'll get a bunch of stuff out. And then for the mailbag, we'll probably get a question out later today, and we'll post that. So just make sure to comment, and then you'll be eligible. Or we'll try to answer your question when we do a mailbag episode later this week. So thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.